It's wonderful to see you all again. I've got an extraordinary tale to tell you today.
We found this wonderful place outside of Katy. Assisted living, very modern. They have a garden. That was Jolene Cross, my son-in-law's mother, sitting at the table I built with my own hands in 1994. She was sliding a glossy brochure across the wood like it was a courtesy, not an eviction notice. The brochure had a photograph, a smiling elderly couple walking through a manicured courtyard. Neither of them looked like they had ever welded a truck frame or rebuilt a transmission in August heat. I looked at the brochure. I looked at Jolene. I looked at Mitchell. Mitchell was leaning against my kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching me with the patient expression of a man who believed the hard part was already over. My daughter Corrine was standing near the doorway, holding a glass of sweet tea she had not taken a single sip of. Her face was doing that thing it does when she is trying very hard not to have an opinion. Buck Cross, Mitchell's father, was sitting across from me. He nodded along the way men do when their wives are delivering a speech they rehearsed in the car. "The thing is, Earl," Buck said, "this house is a lot for one person. 3 bedrooms, that big workshop out back. The property taxes alone must be eating you alive." The property taxes on my house were $4,200 a year. I had paid them on time every year since 1991, but Buck did not know that. Buck did not know very much about my finances at all, which made it remarkable how confident he was about rearranging them. I picked up my coffee mug, the ceramic one Josephine made in a pottery class the year before she died, the one with a crooked handle and her initials scratched into the bottom, JBD. I took a slow sip. "Who picked this place?" I asked. Mitchell straightened against the counter. "Corrine and I talked about it," he said. "It just makes sense, Earl. You're 67, living out here alone. We worry." He smiled the way he always smiled, warmly, like a man offering you something he had already decided you needed. "I'm not struggling," I said. "Nobody said you were. You said the property taxes are eating me alive." Buck spread his hands. "It was an expression, Earl. The property taxes on this house are $4,200 a year. I have paid them on time every year since 1991, in cash, not credit." The room was quiet for a moment. Mitchell uncrossed his arms. "We're just saying there are options, nice places, active communities. You'd have people around." "I have people around," I said. I looked at Corrine. "When they visit." Corrine set her glass of sweet tea on the counter. She still had not taken a sip of it. "Daddy," she said, "we just want you to be comfortable." "I built this house," I said, "poured the foundation in 1989, framed it in 1990, moved in on March 14, 1991 with $400 left in my account and a borrowed truck. I am comfortable." Mitchell glanced at his mother. Something passed between them that I was meant to miss. I did not miss it. But what Mitchell did not know, what none of them knew sitting in my kitchen that Saturday morning in October, was that the shoebox on the shelf in my workshop held every receipt for every dollar I had given this family for the past 6 years. And what those receipts would reveal, 3 months later, in this same kitchen, would make Jolene Cross stop speaking mid-sentence and never finish. But I will get to that. First, you need to understand how a man who sold his business for $430,000 ended up being handed a brochure for assisted living by people who owed him $214,000 they had never acknowledged. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story hits close to home. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I would love to know where you are listening from. Let me take you back. June 1982, St. Anne's Catholic Church in Beaumont, Texas. Josephine Boudreau married me on a Saturday afternoon. She was 23. I was 22. She wore her mother's dress, altered twice, still a little long in the hem. I wore a rented suit and my father's boots. We had $1,400 between us and a rented apartment above a feed store on Magnolia Street that smelled like diesel and hay. I remember the sound of the window unit rattling at night. I remember her bare feet on the linoleum floor every morning, making coffee in a percolator we bought at a yard sale for $6. I started Dupree Auto and Fabrication out of a rented bay on Route 90 in 1984. 1 welding rig, 1 floor jack. A hand-painted sign that Josephine lettered herself because we could not afford a professional one. For you to understand the rest of this story, you need to understand what 35 years of 14-hour days look like. They look like hands that do not fully close anymore. They look like a house on Oak Ridge Road that I designed on graph paper at my kitchen table and built, board by board, with a crew of 3 men I paid hourly out of the business account. They look like a workshop behind that house with a concrete floor I poured myself in 1993, the year Corrine was born. Josephine and I built something, not fast, not flashy. The way you build anything real, one weld at a time, one invoice at a time, one handshake at a time. By 2015, Dupree Auto and Fabrication had 11 employees, 3 service bays, a dedicated welding shop, and contracts with 2 oilfield service companies and a marine equipment supplier out of Port Arthur. My reputation stretched across 3 counties. When Josephine got sick in early 2016, I scaled back. By the time she died in March 2017, I was barely working, pancreatic cancer. 7 months from diagnosis to funeral. I held her hand in the hospice bed at 2 in the morning when she stopped breathing. She weighed 94 pounds. Her wedding ring was loose on her finger. I slid it off and put it on a chain around my neck, where it has been ever since. The last real conversation I had with Josephine about money was in January 2017, 2 months before she died. She was sitting up in the hospital bed, a glass of water on the tray table she could no longer finish. She looked at my hands. "You've been paying for Corrine's rent," she said. It was not a question. "She's still getting started," I said. "The teacher's salary doesn't stretch far in Houston." "Keep track of it," Josephine said. "Not because you'll ask for it back, but because money without records becomes a story and other people write the story for you." I nodded. "I always keep receipts." She smiled. "I know, that's why I married you." That was the last time she laughed. 14 days later, she was gone. I sold the business in 2019 for $430,000 to Gary Thibodeaux, a former employee who had been running the day-to-day for 2 years. Gary shook my hand in the parking lot. "Mr. Dupree," he said, "I'll take care of it." I believed him. He has. Corrine married Mitchell Cross in November 2018, 8 months after they met at a friend's crawfish boil in Houston. Mitchell was charming. I want to be fair about that. He had the kind of confidence that fills a room before he even sits down. He told good stories. He laughed at mine. He called me sir for the first 6 months. I was still counting the sir months as genuine. There was one moment about 4 months after the wedding at a Christmas dinner at our house in Beaumont. Mitchell had a couple of bourbons and he made a comment. He was telling a story about a property he and some friends were looking at, something about investment potential, and he said, almost offhand, "It helps to have family who built things, you know? People with real assets, real history." He was looking at me when he said it. He was smiling. I thought he meant it as a compliment. I filed it under charming. I should have filed it under something else. February 2019, Tuesday evening, 6:45. I was in my workshop sanding the edge of a bookshelf I was building for Corrine's classroom. Red oak. The sawdust smelled like church pews. My phone rang. Mitchell. "Earl, hey, I hate to ask this." His voice had that particular softness people use when they are about to ask for money. I have heard it 1,000 times. From employees, from vendors, from my own brother twice. The softness is always the same. "Corrine and I hit a rough patch this month," he said. "Car repair came out of nowhere. Transmission on the Camry. Could you help us out with about $5,000, just temporary?" I did not hesitate. "I'll wire it tomorrow." "Thank you, sir." The sir was still there. It would not survive the year. I wired $5,000 the next morning from my account at First National Bank in Beaumont to the joint account Mitchell and Corrine held at Chase in Houston. I wrote a note in the wire field. "For Corrine and Mitchell, car repair." I printed the receipt. I put it in a manila envelope. I put the envelope in a shoebox on the shelf above my workbench. Josephine and I had always kept receipts. Every invoice, every payment, every handshake deal confirmed with a carbon copy. 40 years of habit, a carpenter's pencil and a receipt. That is how you keep honest people honest and catch dishonest people later. Mitchell never mentioned the $5,000 again, not thank you. Not "I'll pay you back next month." Not "we're getting back on our feet." Just silence. The way a river absorbs a stone. I was not angry, not yet. I told myself families do this. Fathers help, money circulates, nobody keeps score. But I kept the receipt. That was the first one. There would be 47 more. Life was about to teach me why Josephine always said that the difference between family and business is that business gives you a contract. June 2019. Mitchell called. "Down payment situation, Earl. Corrine found a house she loves in Cyprus. We're $62,000 short on the down payment." I drove to Houston. I saw the house, 3 bedrooms, a gated community, a pool and a 2-car garage. Mitchell's leased BMW was parked in the driveway like it had always lived there. I wrote a check for $62,000 in Corrine's kitchen. Mitchell took it with both hands. "This changes everything for us, Earl. I mean that." He looked me in the eye when he said it. That is the thing about Mitchell. He always looked you in the eye, even when the words behind the eyes were hollow. September 2020. Mitchell had an idea for a mobile detailing business. Premium car care. 12 pages of color business plan. He presented it to me in my workshop like I was a bank. "I need $85,000 for equipment, a van, branding, and first-year operating costs." I set the plan down. "That's a big number, Mitchell. It's what it takes to do it right. I've looked at every competitor in the Houston market. High-end, corporate fleets, dealerships, there is a real gap. And you want $85,000 to fill it. To fill it properly, not to dabble." I studied the plan. Page 4 had a section on logo and branding. The budget was $4,200. "This is a lot of money for a sign," I said. "Brand is everything in the premium market, Earl. You can't show up to a Mercedes dealership in a plain white van." I looked at him. He had an answer for everything. He always did. "I'll loan you the $85,000, I said. "But you sign a note. 1 page. $1,500 a month starting January. We shake on it and you sign it." Mitchell smiled. "Of course. Absolutely." "That is completely fair." Fair. He used that word like it cost him nothing. I read the plan. It was optimistic the way business plans are when the person writing them has never met a quarterly tax payment. I made him sign the promissory note. Simple. 1 page. "Mitchell A. Cross agrees to repay Earl R. Dupree the sum of $85,000 at a rate of $1,500 per month beginning January 2021. He signed it at my kitchen table with a ballpoint pen from the junk drawer. He never sent a single payment. The detailing business lasted 9 months. Mitchell blamed the market. I blamed the $4,200 he spent on logo design. What happened after the business failed is the part that makes my jaw tight even now. Mitchell did not just stop communicating about the money. He began positioning himself between me and Corrine. Slowly. The way fences go up. First a post, then a rail. Then you cannot see the yard anymore. By 2022, Mitchell was the one who called me when they needed help. Mitchell was the one who described the situation. Mitchell was the one who deposited my checks. Corrine called me on Sundays. She said things like, "Mitchell's been really stressed about the mortgage this month." She said, "Mitchell says we might need a little help with property taxes." She did not know the details. She trusted her husband to manage them. And Mitchell managed them the way he managed everything, with charm, with vagueness, and with the absolute certainty that the man writing the checks would never ask to see the books. July 2022. I tried to address it. I drove to Houston on a Thursday after work, sat at Corrine's kitchen table. Mitchell was at the gym. "Sweetheart," I said, "I need to talk to you about the finances." She put down her lesson planner. "What about them?" "The money I've been sending. Does Mitchell discuss the amounts with you?" She tilted her head. "Dad, Mitchell handles the bills. He's good at it." "Has he mentioned how much I've sent this year?" She paused. "He said you helped with the property tax, maybe a couple thousand." The number was $14,800. I sat there for a long time. I looked at the kitchen Mitchell had renovated with money I provided for the mortgage. Italian tile backsplash, new cabinet hardware. A wine fridge that cost $1,200. "Okay," I said. "Just checking." She smiled. "Don't worry about it, Daddy. Mitchell's got it handled." I drove home that night with my hands tight on the steering wheel and the taste of something sour in the back of my throat. Mitchell had it handled. The way a magician has it handled. Misdirection is not dishonesty until you count what disappeared. But he was borrowing from a man who had spent 35 years reading numbers for a living. And what Mitchell did not understand, what I carry every morning when I walk past that workshop shelf, is that I was not keeping receipts out of suspicion. I was keeping them out of love, because receipts are proof. And proof is the only thing that survives when trust dies. I tried one more time before July 2022. Spring of that year, I called Mitchell directly on a Wednesday afternoon. He picked up on the second ring, which surprised me. "Earl, hey, how are things out in Beaumont?" There it was, out in Beaumont, like Beaumont was a pasture and I was something grazing in it. "Good," I said. "Mitchell, I want to talk about the note, the repayment schedule we agreed on." A pause, very brief, professional. "Earl, I hear you. Things have been tight since the van went down, but I am working on a plan. Can I call you back next week? Corrine and I are actually in the middle of something." He did not call back. I did not follow up. A man learns, eventually, which doors are open and which ones are painted on the wall. December 2021, Christmas dinner at the Cypress House, the house I helped pay for. Jolene brought a pecan pie. Buck brought a bottle of whiskey. Mitchell carved the turkey. Corrine set the table. I sat at the end, nearest the kitchen door. That was the seat Mitchell offered me. "Earl, Mitchell tells us you're retired now," Jolene said, passing the cranberry sauce. "Must be nice to slow down." "I keep busy," I said. "Workshop projects." "Oh, that's sweet," she said, "keeping your hands moving." She said it the way people say sweet when they mean small. Buck leaned over. "You ever think about selling that property in Beaumont? Lot of land for one man." "It's not a lot of land," I said. "It's my home." Sure, Buck said, just thinking out loud. Mitchell loaded his plate. He did not say anything. But his silence had a shape to it, the shape of a man who had already discussed this subject in a room I was not in. By Thanksgiving 2023, the observations had hardened into assumptions. Jolene now referred to me as Earl out in Beaumont, the way you might describe a distant cousin you send a card to at Christmas. Buck asked me twice whether I had looked into retirement communities. Mitchell stopped saying sir. He stopped calling me on the phone entirely. Everything came through Corrine, who relayed requests with the exhausted efficiency of a woman appointed translator for a conversation she did not fully understand. My daughter was pulling away from me. The kind of pulling that happens so gradually you do not notice until the rope is already slack, and it hurt more than any dollar amount. There was one Sunday in December 2023 I keep coming back to. I called Corrine at 7 in the evening. She picked up after the third ring. I could hear Mitchell in the background. "Hey, Daddy. Hey, sweetheart, how are things?" "Good, busy. Mitchell's been working on something new. A business, an investment opportunity, some partners from the gym. It's early." I did not say what I was thinking. I never did. "Did you get the transfer I sent last week?" I asked. A pause. "What transfer?" $2,200 for the December mortgage gap." "Mitchell said you were short." She went quiet for a moment, long enough to tell me she was hearing this for the first time. "Daddy," she said, "you didn't have to do that." "I know." Mitchell said the payment was sorted. "It is now," I said. Another pause. "Thank you." She said it the way people say thank you when they are not sure what exactly they are thanking you for, because they suspect the answer is larger than they are prepared to hear. November 2024, the dinner where they brought the brochure. Mitchell and his parents in my kitchen, in front of my table, drinking coffee from Josephine's mugs, telling me the house I built was too much for me. That was the night I went into my workshop after they left. I pulled the shoebox off the shelf. I sat on the concrete floor, the same floor I poured in 1993, and I opened the lid. 47 receipts. Wire transfers. Canceled checks. The promissory note with Mitchell's signature in blue ink. I counted. $62,000 for the down payment. $85,000 for the business that lasted 9 months. $67,000 in mortgage assistance across 38 individual transfers over 5 years. Total, $214,000. I did not cry. I do not say that to sound tough. What I felt was not sadness. It was the cold, clear feeling of finishing a measurement. When you have been a welder for 40 years, You learn that the difference between a good weld and a failed one is a 16th of an inch. I had measured this family down to the penny, and they were off by $214,000. I sat there for a long time. The workshop was cold. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead the way it always has, a low electric hum that Josephine used to say sounded like the building was thinking. I held her wedding ring through my shirt. The chain was warm against my chest. For a moment, I was not a 67-year-old man sitting on a concrete floor surrounded by receipts. I was the 22-year-old kid in a rented suit, standing at the altar at St. Anne's, watching Josephine walk toward me in her mother's dress. She would have known what to do. She always knew. But she was gone, and the knowing had to come from me now. And it did. Slowly. Like a measurement you take 3 times before you mark the cut, I put the lid back on. I went inside. I poured a glass of bourbon and sat in the chair Josephine used to sit in, the one nearest the window, and I made a decision. The next morning, I called Helen Tran. Now I need to pause here. If you have ever given everything to someone who treated you like furniture, if you have ever been the one building and paying and holding while someone handed you a brochure and a smile, comment, still here below. And if you think Mitchell is about to regret everything, type karma. Let us keep going because what happened next even surprised me. Helen Tran's office was on Calder Avenue in Beaumont, above a bail bonds office and across the street from a barbecue restaurant that made the whole block smell like mesquite smoke at noon. I had known Helen for 15 years. She handled the sale of Dupree Auto and Fabrication. She handled Josephine's estate. She was the kind of lawyer who wore reading glasses on a chain and said exactly what she meant once, without repeating herself. I placed the shoebox on her desk on a Monday morning in December 2024. She opened the lid. She started reading. She read for 40 minutes without speaking, not a single question. Just page after page, receipt after receipt, her pen making small marks in the margins of a yellow legal pad. When she looked up, her glasses were low on her nose. "Mr. Dupree," she said, "this is the most organized collection of broken promises I have reviewed in 24 years of practice." She set the legal pad down. "You have a promissory note for $85,000 that has never been serviced. You have wire transfer records for an additional $129,000 in direct family support, each one with a dated note. And you have a property deed to a house in Cypress, Texas, for which you provided the entire down payment that does not include your name." She paused. "You could file civil claims that would take years, or you could do something much simpler. You could sit your daughter down and show her the math." "I've been thinking about something in between," I said. Helen leaned back. "Tell me," I told her. She listened. Then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman who had spent 24 years watching men like Mitchell and found them consistently predictable. "I'll prepare the folder," she said. "You set the table." I drove home. I called my son Ray in North Dakota. "I need you here in January," I said. "I'll tell you why when you get here." Ray did not ask questions. He just said, "I'll be there, Dad." Some people ask for explanations. My son asks for a date. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing. Not dramatically. Quietly. The way you prepare a weld, you clean the surface, you check the fit, you set the angle, and then you strike the arc once precisely because a good welder never needs a second pass. If you are still with me, hit subscribe now because this next part is the moment that changed everything. January 18th, 2026. A Saturday. I invited them all to dinner at the house on Oak Ridge Road. Corrine, Mitchell, Jeline, and Buck, I cooked. Josephine's recipe. Smothered pork chops, rice and gravy, green beans from the garden I had put up the previous summer, and cornbread in the cast-iron skillet she seasoned in 1989. The house smelled like home. The real kind. Not the kind you find in a brochure. Ray arrived the night before. He sat in the workshop with me and I showed him the shoebox. He read every receipt. He did not speak for a long time, then he looked up. $214,000, Dad. I know, and they want you in a retirement home. They brought the brochure. He set the last receipt down. His hands, pipeline calloused, darker than mine, were shaking, not from cold. How long have you known? I've known the numbers since November. I've known something was wrong since 2022. Ray set the receipt down. He looked at the ceiling for a moment. Why didn't you? He stopped, started again. I mean, why didn't you call me? Because I wasn't sure yet, and then I was sure, and I didn't want to put it on you when you were 6 states away with nothing you could do. He picked up the promissory note and read it again, slowly. He signed this. In my kitchen, with a pen from that drawer. Ray tapped the note with one finger. And sent nothing. Not a single payment, not once. He was quiet for a moment. Then, does Corrine know any of it? She knows I've helped. She doesn't know the amount. She doesn't know about the note. Ray set the receipt back in the box carefully, the way you set down something that could break. What do you need from me? I need you at the table, that is all. That's it, just be there. Just be there, don't say a word until it is time, and when it is time, say what's true. He nodded. He did not say okay. He just nodded, which in our family means the same thing but costs more. The workshop was quiet. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Outside, the January air was still. They arrived at 5 in the afternoon. Mitchell's BMW pulled into the driveway first. Corrine got out of the passenger side. She hugged me. She always hugged me. That was the problem. The love was real. The information was not. Mitchell shook my hand. Place looks great, Earl. He said it the way people compliment a house they have already mentally reassigned to themselves. Buck and Jolene arrived 10 minutes later in their Buick. Buck carried a bottle of wine, $14, the kind with a screw cap and an animal on the label. Jolene carried a casserole dish. Just in case you needed a side, she said, as if my kitchen required supplementation. Helen Tran arrived at 5:30. She parked her gray Honda Accord behind Buck's Buick. She carried a leather briefcase. Mitchell noticed her from the window. Who's that? My lawyer, I said. The room went very still, not the kind of still that comes from surprise. The kind that comes from recalculation. Mitchell's jaw moved once, then reset. Jolene set her casserole dish down a little harder than necessary. Buck looked at the wine bottle in his hand like he was not sure it was enough anymore. Corrine looked at me. Dad, sit down, sweetheart, I said. Everyone sit down, dinner first. We ate. The pork chops were good. Josephine would have approved. The conversation was thin. The kind of dinner talk that happens when everyone knows something is coming but nobody wants to be the first to acknowledge it. Ray ate quietly. Helen ate politely. Mitchell ate fast. When the plates were cleared and the coffee was poured, I nodded to Helen. She opened her briefcase on the table. I'll get right to it, she said. Helen placed a manila folder on the table. She opened it. Inside were copies of every wire transfer, every canceled check, every receipt from the shoebox, 47 pages. She turned to Corrine first. Corrine, do you know the total amount your father has contributed to your household finances since February 2019? Corrine blinked. She looked at Mitchell. Mitchell was looking at the folder. I know Dad has helped out, Corrine said carefully. A few times. Maybe $10,000 or $15,000 over the years. Helen nodded. She turned a page. The documented total is $214,000. The number landed on the table like a stone dropped into still water. Corrine's mouth opened. No sound came out. That includes $62,000 for the down payment on your house in Cyprus, Helen continued. $85,000 in a business loan to Mitchell, secured by a promissory note that has never been serviced. And $67,000 in mortgage assistance across 38 individual transfers over 5 years. She turned another page. Each transfer has a date, a note field, and a corresponding bank confirmation. Your father kept every receipt. Mitchell leaned forward. Now hold on. His voice was steady, but his hands had moved under the table. That is not how it happened. A lot of that was gifts, family support. Earl was happy to help. I looked at him. Mitchell, I said quietly, I have never once in my life given a gift of $85,000. Mitchell pivoted. Charming men always do. Look, even if the numbers are right, which I'm not conceding, we've been paying the mortgage on our own for years. We built equity in that house. That's our investment. Helen did not blink. Your mortgage has been supplemented by 38 direct transfers from Mr. Dupree's personal account. 38 months where the full payment was only possible because your father-in-law covered the gap. Would you like me to read the months? That's not necessary. January 2021, $1,800. March 2021, $1,600. June 2021, $2,100. Shall I continue? Mitchell's jaw tightened. This feels like an ambush. It feels like arithmetic, I said. You just don't recognize it because you've never been on this side of it. Helen slid the promissory note across the table. Mitchell's signature, blue ink. January 2020. Is this your signature, Mr. Cross? Mitchell did not answer. Is this your signature? She repeated. Yes, he inhaled. But that was an informal agreement. An informal agreement, Helen said, with your full legal name, a specified repayment schedule, and the date and location of execution. I have obtained judgments on less formal agreements than this one. Jolene reached for the note. She read it. Her face did something I had not anticipated. It went through 3 phases in about 10 seconds. Confusion, calculation, and then something that looked underneath the polish almost like shame. She set it down without speaking. Buck cleared his throat. Now, Earl, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. There is, I said. Your son borrowed $214,000 from me over 6 years. He told my daughter it was a fraction of that. He convinced you that I was an old man who needed a retirement brochure. And the whole time, the house you visited at Christmas, the one with the pool and the 2-car garage, exists because I wrote the check that bought it. Mitchell stood up. This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything. He looked at Corrine. Tell him how much I've sacrificed for this family. Corrine did not look at Mitchell. She was looking at the folder, page by page, date by date. Her finger traced a line on one of the wire transfer confirmations. November 2022, she said quietly. $2,200. For Corrine and Mitchell, mortgage gap, November. She looked up. You told me this was from the tax refund, Mitchell. Mitchell said nothing. January 2023, Corrine continued, turning a page. $1,900. You told me Dad's pension had finally come through. He doesn't have a pension, Ray said from across the table. I know that now, Corrine said. Her voice was very quiet, the kind of quiet that is not calm. March 2023, $2,000. You said Daddy insisted that he wanted to help. She closed the folder. He did want to help, she said, but not like this, not without me knowing, not while you told me it came from somewhere else. Mitchell said nothing. It was the loudest nothing I have ever heard. Here is what I have learned about confrontation. It does not work unless someone at the table who started on the wrong side changes their mind in front of everyone. Jolene was still holding the promissory note. She set it down and looked at her son. Mitchell, she said. Her voice was different now, smaller. Is this true? Mom, it's complicated. $214,000 is not complicated, Mitchell. It is a number. Mitchell tried one more defense, the personal one. The one charming men save for last. Corrine, you know me. You know I love this family. Everything I did was to build something for us. I wanted to give you the life you deserved. Corrine did not respond. Mitchell turned to me. I made mistakes, Earl, but I did it from a good place. When you sold your business, I thought it meant we were building this together, all of us, as a family. He caught himself. But not before the sentence revealed what he had never said out loud. When you sold your business, I thought. He thought the sale proceeds were communal property. He thought my 35 years of work became his inheritance the day he married my daughter. And there it was, not a confession, a slip. The truest sentence Mitchell Cross had ever spoken in my kitchen. Buck stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at my workshop, the building I put up with my own hands. The concrete floor I poured in 1993, the tools hanging on pegboard in the same order for 30 years. Earl, Buck said without turning around, I owe you an apology. He paused. That brochure was Mitchell's idea. Mitchell's face went white. Dad, that is not fair. It is exactly fair, Buck said. He turned around. He told us you were struggling. He told us you were having memory problems. He told us the house was falling apart and you needed help. Earl is 67 and he lives alone, Mitchell said. I was concerned. You were looking at Zillow listings in this zip code, Corrine said. The room went silent. You showed me one, she continued. Last August, you said you wanted to see what the market looked like. I thought you meant our house. Mitchell looked at her. "Kareen, did you pull the listing for this street?" He did not answer. That was answer enough. "The house is paid off," I said to Buck. "Has been since 2009. "I know that now," Buck said. He sat down heavily. Jolene reached for her water glass. Her hand was not steady. "Mitchell," she said, "why would you tell us those things?" Mitchell did not answer. His jaw was working, but no words came out. Then Kareen spoke. Quietly, steadily, the steadiest I had heard her voice in years. "Because he wanted the house." The table went silent. "I didn't see it until right now," Kareen continued. "But that is what this has been about, the brochure, the retirement community, getting Dad out of Beaumont." She looked at Mitchell directly. "You told me we should help him transition. You said it was for his own good, but you were already looking at property values in this zip code, weren't you?" Mitchell's face did something I can only describe as a slow collapse. Like a building whose supports have been quietly removed. "Kareen," he said, "I was trying to think long-term." "Long-term," she repeated. "You couldn't pay back $85,000 in 5 years, but you were thinking long-term about my father's property." She pushed her chair back from the table. She did not stand up. She just needed the distance. Jolene had not spoken in several minutes. She was still holding the edge of the table with both hands. "Mitchell," she said, "this is not who we raised. Mom, I am not arguing with you right now. I am telling you what I see." She looked at me. "Earl, I am sorry. That brochure should never have come into your house." I nodded once. I did not speak. Some apologies do not need a reply. They just need to be heard. Ray, who had been silent the entire dinner, spoke for the first time. $214,000, he said to Mitchell. "That's what my father's 35 years of work bought your life, and you thanked him with a brochure." Mitchell did not answer. There was no answer, not one that would survive the weight of the receipts on the table. Helen collected the papers into the folder. She closed it. She looked at me. I looked at my daughter. "I'm not doing this to punish anyone," I said. "I want you to hear that. Every dollar I sent was for you, Kareen, not for a return on investment, not for gratitude, for you." She was crying now, quietly. The kind of crying that does not need a sound to be heard. I laid out the conditions. Simple, numbered. The way I used to write invoices, 1 line per item, no ambiguity. 1. The promissory note for $85,000 will be honored. Helen will establish a repayment schedule. Monthly payments, 24 months. If Mitchell cannot pay $85,000 in 24 months, we extend to 36 with interest. Mitchell did not argue. He did not have the materials to argue with. 2. The remaining $129,000 is a gift to my daughter, not to Mitchell, to Kareen. I will not ask for it back, but I want it acknowledged. I want Kareen to know where every dollar came from, and I want it on record in a document that Helen will prepare, that Mitchell Cross received and failed to disclose $214,000 in financial support from his father-in-law. Jolene closed her eyes. Buck was staring at the table. 3. I am not moving. This house is mine. I built it. I paid for it. Josephine and I raised 2 children in it. No brochure, no committee of concerned relatives, no charming son-in-law with a business plan is going to move me from the home my wife designed on graph paper at this table. I tapped the table with one finger. This table. The one I built. The one where Josephine used to sit and grade Kareen's homework. The one where 47 receipts worth of broken promises had just been laid open like a weld that needed grinding. 4. Dinner at this table, once a month, all of you, but as guests, not as managers of my life, not as assessors of my capability, as family. And if Mitchell cannot sit at this table and be honest, then he does not need to sit at it at all. Mitchell looked at Kareen. Kareen did not look back. She was looking at me. "Daddy," she said, the word she had not used since she was 12. "I didn't know. I know you didn't. I should have asked. Maybe." I did not say it harshly. I said it the way you say something to someone you love when you are too tired to be generous, but too loyal to be cruel. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers found Josephine's wedding ring on the chain around my neck. She held it for a moment. Then she let go. They left at 8:30 that night. Mitchell walked to the BMW without speaking. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine. Kareen stood on the porch with me. The January air in Beaumont was mild, 52 degrees. the smell of mesquite smoke from somewhere down the road, the sound of frogs in the drainage ditch behind the property. Things that have not changed since 1991. Things that will not change because someone handed me a brochure. "I'll call you tomorrow," Corinne said. "Okay. I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart." She walked to the car. Mitchell did not get out to open her door. She opened it herself. They pulled out of the driveway. The BMW's headlights swept across the workshop. For a half-second, the light caught the sign above the door, the one Josephine lettered by hand in 1984. Dupree Auto and Fabrication. The paint was faded. The wood was weathered, but the letters were still there, still legible, still hers. Buck and Jolene left without the casserole dish. I did not remind them. Helen packed her briefcase. At the door, she paused. "Earl," she said, "you could have taken that house from them, legally with the promissory note and the undisclosed down payment you had standing." "I know. Why didn't you?" I looked at her. "Because the house is not the point. The house was never the point." She nodded once. "I'll have the repayment agreement drafted by Friday." She left. Ray helped me wash the dishes. We did not speak for a long time. The kitchen was warm. The window above the sink showed the workshop in the dark. "Mom would have handled it differently," Ray said, drying a plate. "How?" "She would have hit him with the cast-iron skillet." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in months. "She would have," I said. "And then she would have made him cornbread in it the next day." We finished the dishes. Ray poured us each 2 fingers of bourbon. We sat at the kitchen table. Josephine's chair was empty. It is always empty, but it is still there. It is hers. 3 months later, April 2026. The azaleas along Oak Ridge Road were blooming. The workshop smelled like sawdust and old metal. I was building a bookshelf for Corinne's classroom. Red oak again. Same wood as the first one I built for her in 2019. Mitchell made the first payment on the promissory note in February, $1,500, automatic withdrawal. Helen confirmed it by text that morning. He made the March payment too. Corinne called me every Sunday. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she did not. Once she told me that Mitchell had started seeing a counselor. "He says he wants to understand why he did it," she said. "That's a start," I said. "Not a finish, but a start." Buck called me in March. I did not expect that. "Earl," he said, "I should have looked at the numbers before I brought that brochure into your house. I should have asked my son harder questions." He paused. "I've been a route driver my whole life. I know what a manifest looks like when the count is off. I should have seen it." I did not forgive him outright, but I thanked him for calling. Forgiveness is not a switch. It is a weld. You have to clean the surface, set the angle, and apply heat at the right speed. Go too fast and it cracks. Go too slow and it never bonds. People ask me sometimes if I regret waiting 6 years to open that shoebox, if I should have shown the receipt sooner. Here is what I tell them. Some truths need a table, not a courtroom, not a parking lot argument. A table. The kind you built with your own hands, where the woman you loved used to sit, where the children you raised used to eat. Truths told at the right table in front of the right people at the right time do not destroy. They clarify. Last Sunday, Corinne came to dinner. Alone, no Mitchell. Not because they have separated, because some months the table needs to be just us. She helped me cook. Josephine's recipe. Smothered pork chops, rice and gravy, garden green beans, and cornbread in the cast-iron skillet. We ate at the table I built. Josephine's chair was empty, but Corinne sat in the chair beside it. Close enough to touch. After dinner, I went out to the workshop. I turned on the light. The shoebox was back on the shelf, lighter now. Some receipts had been given to Helen. The rest were filed. I picked up a piece of red oak, held it to the light, ran my thumb along the grain. I still had the carpenter's pencil behind my ear. 40 years of habit. Josephine used to tease me about it. "Earl, you are going to be buried with a pencil behind your ear." "Probably," I always said, "but at least I'll be able to measure whatever comes next." I set the wood on the bench. I turned off the light. I walked back to the house. The kitchen window was yellow. Corinne was inside, washing the skillet. The house was warm. The frogs were singing in the ditch. My house, my quiet, my table. Some men build things to prove something. Earl Dupree built his to protect something. There is a difference. And tonight, finally, everyone at the table understood it.
I hope you enjoyed this tale. Please subscribe to support the channel. Goodbye for now.